Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the Clinic Talk podcast. I'm here with the Dr. Rachel Selman. She's in Matthews, North Carolina, and she's a physical therapist and performance specialist at Synthesis Performance and Recovery. How are you, Rachel?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Rachel. Thanks for being on. So I'm excited to kind of ask you some more in-depth questions about you and your business to know how you started and how you got to where you are, because it seems like you have some cool stuff we can talk about. So if you don't mind, awesome. So if you don't mind, just kind of give us a little introduction on your background. We know you're a physical therapist. How did you come to be a physical therapist?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am kind of one of those weird people I feel like has always just known I've wanted to do PT. I've never really wavered in that. I played soccer when I was younger, ended up in PT for kind of random injuries and things like that, and just fell in love with the environment of not, feeling like I was stuck at a desk. Every hour was different. It was very hands on. So I've always wanted to be a PT. I went to undergrad at Georgia Tech, which is kind of untraditional for physical therapy, but honestly went on a campus tour there and just fell in love with Atlanta and the campus. And so ended up getting my undergrad degree in chemistry, and then got my doctorate degree at Mercer University, also in Atlanta, in physical therapy. And yeah, just kind of went from there. Since then, I have spent more time kind of getting more involved with the National Strength and Conditioning Association. So I have my CSCS, which is the Strength and Conditioning Specialist, and my CPSS, which is Performance and Sport Scientist certification, so that I can kind of participate more in research world, whether it's peer review or whether it's writing research or understanding, and interpreting data. So that's been kind of a fun post grad journey to get a little bit more involved in the performance side.
Cool. Very nice. Very nice. And when you said when you went to school, are you originally um from Georgia or
But
North
yeah, I'm
Carolina?
originally from Rome, Georgia, so northwest Georgia area, but I did a couple campus tours at a couple different schools, and I mean, I felt like once I was at Georgia Tech, I was like, this is it. I don't know what I'm gonna do when I get here, but I'm gonna figure it out. And I just kind of liked chemistry more than other things. Georgia Tech didn't have like an anatomy or physiology option, so my undergrad degree is definitely not, quote, traditional in terms of physical therapy school, but really just fell in love with the campus and knew that I'd get to PT school one way or another.
Awesome, awesome. Cool. No, thanks for sharing that. And so you didn't have did you have anyone in your family or friends that was a PT? Like what made you get drawn to physical therapy?
Yeah. My dad was a physician and my mom was a nurse, so they're both in the medical field. And then again, kind of my journey with a couple little random injuries that, healed relatively quickly, definitely kind of piqued my interest, I guess, in physical therapy. And then my grandmother, when I was in high school, had a stroke and went through a lot of physical therapy afterwards. And just watching kind of her function change and how life changing that was for her. Again, that hands on aspect of it, of, every hour, every client is different. And I don't think I could ever work at a job where I feel like I'm tucked into like a cubicle all day. So I think it was pretty much a go from the time that I stepped foot into a clinic as a client, but then saw it manifest in other kind of areas of my life as well.
Gotcha. Cool. Thanks for sharing that. And as far as kind of synthesis physical therapy, right? Is when did you open that or start that?
So synthesis physical therapy, I started almost 3 years ago. More recently, we have a DBA as we're doing business as synthesis performance and recovery. So I'm still synthesis physical therapy, but we kind of changed the name so that we can include other kind of um, wellness options under our roof. So we go by synthesis performance and recovery. So we have three different physical therapists. We've got three personal trainers, a chiropractor, a nutritionist, a mental health therapist. So we're trying to kind of address full picture for clients. So for example, when a
Mhm.
client is done with physical therapy, but they want to continue training, then I can kind of refer them to who I feel like would be best suited, given their goals and given their, education style and things like that. So it's been an interesting journey kind of switching more from working in a corporate kind of setting as a staff physical therapist to now owning this facility and trying to decide how we want to go about running that.
Cool. And when you say we, does that mean you have partners in this business?
So I don't have partners in this business. I say we really because even with synthesis performance and recovery, the clinicians that we have, I don't directly employ them. My goal with synthesis was to create a space where these clinicians who have worked so hard and, have the education that they need to be their own boss, to let them be their own boss. That was one of the things that
Mhm.
bothered me, I think, in physical therapy was like I went to all this school. I did all the work. I'm the one treating these clients and I'm the one developing these relationships. But I'm being told how to do this by people who aren't ever in the clinic, who don't know these clients, who don't know these patients. And I mean, the level of schooling and the level of education we have, and coupled with the lack of autonomy that we have as providers, was really frustrating. So when I went into purchase this facility, it was kind of like I wanted the space, but it was too much space for just me. And so the more I thought about it, the more I was like, well, I could, hire and try to go that route. But I really, really like the way that we have it set up right now, which is they, help me pay rent. So they sublease, help me pay rent. So we all get to like benefit from the space and the equipment and all those kinds of things. But they're their own boss. I don't make decisions for them. I don't decide their pricing, their schedules. I'm not hounding them about productivity. Which again, personally, I don't have the bandwidth to do anyways, right? Like I've got my own stuff to take care of and my own kids and my own schedule. And I just know that, we're not going to let anyone under our roof who we don't trust to be able to manage themselves in a way that's ethical and moral and right. And so finding good people that we feel like we can trust to run their own business and letting them run their own business just under our roof has kind of been the way that we've gone about it.
Excellent. Awesome, Rachel. No, that's I love that model. So, and I love that you were able to take what you don't like about the industry and kind of give back to the other therapists that also they have autonomy and to do what they feel is right for the patients, right? Because, nobody's going to do that for the patient other than the treating provider, the therapist that is taking on that case, right? So you want to give them the best kind of option to rehabilitate. So I love that. No,
And
that's
I
awesome.
really think providers do such a better job when they have that autonomy. When you have the
Hmm.
room to decide how you want to treat, how many times a week you want to see a client, how many times you do or don't follow up. I just think the world of numbers, and I know this is, part of the downside of just the way that our insurance system works, but the downside of numbers is like the client in front of me isn't a number. They're not going to fit in this exact model of I want to make sure that I get them in here 12 times within the next 6 weeks. And life just doesn't work that way, and in the short term, the business model is more difficult. Like, I only see clients usually once or twice a month,
Hmm.
but I get a long period of time with them so that when they leave, they feel prepared for their next 2 weeks before they see me again. But from the business side, and when I first started this, it was very, kinda confusing because I was so used to, like, being in an environment where it's like, "This patient has to come in 2 to 3 times this week. If they don't, we're gonna call them. If they cancel, we're gonna follow up. We're gonna figure out why they didn't come, and, like, when they come in, we need to build this many units even if it's not really exactly what they need," and struggling with that on such a regular basis, and now to not have that on my plate, I feel like taking that off my plate has made me such a better provider because I have the energy to be there for my clients and to be accessible to them when they need me. I'm not seeing 80 clients a week. So when they send me an email, I have the time and the, again, mental bandwidth to respond to them versus saying, hey, like, I'll see you in 2 days because I see you 3 times a week. We'll just follow up then. So it's just a completely different model. And, again, learning what I really didn't like, but understanding that not everyone has the resources or even, like, wants to open a facility. Like, opening a
Yeah. Yeah.
facility, buying equipment, making sure you've got offices, making sure the legalities are covered, that's really hard, and there's so many clinicians out there who want to own their own business and do their own thing, but don't know how to do that part. And so
100%.
taking that off their plate and saying, "Listen, here's just a space where you can be your own provider and you don't have to go do all this," right? Like, you don't have to open a line of credit. You don't have to put your house on the line. You don't have to decide what's important and what's not. You just get to show up and treat without me barking at you about how I think you should be treating. So that was really the goal, and it's worked out. It's worked out really well. I think all the time, I'm kind of like, well, I could, right, technically make more money if I hired independent contractors or like put people on salary and just kept the income or whatever. But it really and truly is not about that. I just think our profession has really struggled because of the layout of most of the clinics. And so it really and
Mhm.
truly was providing a space and allowing these providers who we know and trust to be the providers that we know that they are.
Amazing. Thank you, Rachel, for sharing that. So tell me, so you mentioned a lot over there. So as far as billing goes, are you insurance based, cash based, the mix?
So I am cash based. So we do complete super bills and give those to clients so that clients have the opportunity to submit if they'd like to submit. Most of my clients actually do get at least partially reimbursed. And a lot of times when they compare to their normal care, deductibles now are so high that they end up actually saving money because I don't see them as often. So like a plan of
Mhm.
care for me may be 6 sessions over 6 months versus, a traditional model that's twice a week for 6 weeks where they're still paying 100% because they haven't met their
Yeah,
deductible. So in a lot of cases, the full plan of care actually ends up being cheaper, even though that initial sticker shock can feel a little daunting. That said, we do have a physical therapist who is in network with two insurances. So just insurances that he feels comfortable with, that he doesn't feel like he has to fight with to get his job done. So he has chosen to go personally in network with them under our facility so that he can provide
interesting.
service through insurance. So if I have a client call who has one of those insurances, I do offer them because again, I think the best business model is to be honest and transparent and truthful. Hey, listen, you can schedule with me and pay out of pocket, but you can also schedule with him and he takes insurance. So if that's a better financial option for you, I want you to do that. And then, down the line, if they ever need anything in the future, then hopefully they end up coming back because they know that we were honest about that.
Yeah, no, makes total sense. So you essentially have your therapist in the facility, and when you do marketing or somebody calls the office, you know who you can give them to based on either specialty or even insurances, right?
For sure, and we usually like, all of our provider bios are listed online and things like that, so I'll tell people like, "Hey, go online, read the bios, see who you feel like the most connected with," and then we all do consults as well, so if you want to do like a 15-minute phone call just to chat about what's going on, make sure that you feel comfortable with us, make sure that it's a good fit, all that kind of stuff, that's important to me too, especially with cash pay. I mean, I know that that's, we're paying a lot out of the pocket, you deserve really good care, and you deserve someone who you feel like can hear you and listen and adjust accordingly. So we do offer free phone consults as well for that purpose.
Excellent. Oh, awesome. A great model. I mean, it allows you to have the flexibility and also providers, therapists to have flexibility. And how many therapists did you say
So three
working?
total, me and two
Three
others.
total. Okay. And are they both physical therapists? Or any
Both
assistant?
physical therapists. Yeah, so we have three total physical therapists.
Hmm.
Shika does a lot of more like general kind of health and wellness, some vestibular stuff, some balance, things like that. And then John has been working more in the kind of sports performance realm for a really long
Hmm.
time. He also has a lot of great connections there. And then I have been working mostly with public health and then more recently with TPI and golfer kind of setup. So everyone kind of has their little niche that when, someone calls or asks, hey, who should I schedule with? We feel like we can put them with the person who would be the best fit.
Awesome. And as far as certifications go, I know for you, you have dry needling certification, right? So do you use that for marketing or how do you market? How do you kind of get the word
Marketing
out?
has been interesting because it's another one of those things that I look back at PT school and it's not like we ever learned how to market, right? Like that's not a
Yep.
skill that we were taught. We weren't taught how to run a business. We weren't taught how to do marketing. So that's been something that I still feel like even now I'm still kind of learning how, what is actually worth it and what's not worth it. Marketing for me, so I enjoy coaching and performance. And so when I first opened a cash pay practice, I obviously didn't have a ton of clients on my own. We had just moved to Charlotte, so we didn't know anyone here. And so opened a cash pay practice, but also got involved with Orange Theory, which is where I coach now twice a week, and met a ton of people that way, and then would connect with those members too on like, hey, what's going on with your knee? What are we doing there? And then they would come into the clinic and getting connected that way and like really, I say going grassroots into the community, it's harder that way in that I think you don't grow as quickly. But to me, that growth is so genuine and organic that those clients, let's say I get them better in 3 visits, but 8 months down the line, their kid hurts their knee. Who are they gonna call, right? So maybe the business model from the marketing side doesn't work as well in the quote short term, which is scary, right? It's scary to open a business and not immediately have people on your schedule. But
Line up. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's terrifying, but the way that I think we've been able to
So
go
why most people don't go into business, because
totally.
they're
And
scared of that.
so
Like,
totally, and I get that fear, and so Orange Theory, like, just coaching gave me a really good way to, like, okay, the pay is obviously different, but it was enough to where it kinda gave me something steady,
mhm,
and so I had something steady, could start making connections. We did things like injury clinics through Orange Theory or through other gyms where I would go in and kinda offer for free, like, "Let me sit down and talk with you, let me check you out in person, let me tell you what I think's going on," and again, sometimes in those cases, I think with marketing, I had to say, like, "Hey, listen, this is what's going on with your knee." And, if I'm being honest, maybe physical therapy probably won't help that very much, but here's some other things you could do. And as much as the business side of me wants to say, hey, every single person that I meet in marketing needs to come in and make an appointment and buy a 10 pack of visits, they don't. And I think that
yeah,
transparency has served us so well in the long term, even though, again, in the short term, it feels really scary.
yeah, no, 100%. And I love that you share that because I think a lot of therapists, they want to branch out, they want to be their own boss, but it's that fear, right? How you got to put everything on the line and you got to go into it. And my belief is that you could start small, but you have to take that jump, right? Because there's a lot of therapists that have like safety nets and they're never willing to get out of it, and they can never focus on actually building a practice, right? Which is kind of then it's not going to work out, right? I'm okay with therapists they build like a side hustle or something like that, and I know many therapists that did, and then eventually caseload builds up. But there's a lot of therapists that can't even get to their first patient because they're just relying on their full time job, and they don't want to go and spend a little bit of money to get a place. So
Well,
I
it's
love the fact that you
scary.
have. Mhm.
It feels scary to spend, that money, but I really have said to some of the clinicians I've worked with, like, it literally is taking a bet on yourself. It's stepping up to the bar and saying, like, "Hey, listen, I'm gonna take this amount of money and I'm gonna put it on myself. I'm betting on me." And I think when you make the jump, it comes down to, like, this has to be successful, right? Because I just quit my
Right.
other job.
Sink
Like,
or
I don't
swim, right?
yeah, sink or swim, and so in those first couple months, it's a lot of, "Hey, I'm gonna go do this free workshop at 7 p.m. on a Friday night," or, "Hey, I'm gonna get up
Mhm.
early on Saturday and go out to this group run in town and try to meet people that way and see if there's anybody that I could help," and there's a lot of, like, free stuff and a lot of, like, discounted stuff. "Hey, like, the first 10 people in the door, I'm gonna give you 50% off your initial evaluation," right? The first client that I saw, I ended up seeing on a Saturday because she called me on a Friday, and I was worried that she would change her mind by Monday because 'cause you're just like, "Please let me have a client." So I saw her on a Saturday morning, and then I followed up with her the next day, and she literally was like, "I am 100% better. I am doing great. Like, I will call you if I need you." And I was like, "That would be the client that I got better in 1 visit," you know?
Yeah.
But since then, I haven't seen that client again because she's been really healthy and fine, but she has sent me 4 or 5 other clients, other friends.
There you go.
And so understanding that again, it we don't have a sales background. So again, the thought feels like I need as many clients as possible, but if you can grow it smart and then be honest and transparent and clear with people, then I think that builds a more long-term success model versus trying to find like low-hanging fruit in the door, even though again, that initial phase feels scary. So something like, coaching or training or something like that that you just enjoy,
Yep.
that you can kind of running in the background to fill the gap as you work on filling your schedule, I think was really helpful for me.
Cool. No, very, very good. Very well said. And as far as the practitioners the PTs that you work with now, right? Do you have room for more? Like, let's say somebody really loves the idea and they want to rent space or something like that. Do you have capacity for that?
Not at the moment. So we do 6-month contracts. So basically every 6
Mhm.
months, everyone kind of has the opportunity to kind of just reflect and say, is this working or is it not? And again, the reason I did that is just because I've been there. And again, that initial like hump of trying to find patients. And if you feel like you've been at it too long and are not finding what you need, I don't want you to feel restricted. Like I've been a quote victim of a non-compete and all these kind of, logistics and things like that. I don't want a clinician to feel stuck in a space. So we do 6-month contracts and I tell people the only reason we do that is because I can budget for my rent too, because I'm the one who owns the facility. So I have to pay rent and internet and all that kind of stuff. So if people sign a 6-month contract, then at least I know what's coming in between patient care and, subleasing agreements in those 6 months. After 6 months, if you decide that you don't want to do this anymore for any reason, you are free to go. There's no hard feelings. Good job doing whatever it was that you wanted to do. Maybe you're going to expand somewhere else. Maybe you feel like it didn't grow the way you wanted and you want to take a step back. But again, I feel like we just go to school for too long and have too much of a personal connection with our patients to really let businesses be the ones to decide how we run our practices. So that's kind of how our setup works, is those 6-month contracts. So right now we don't have room in terms of an office space, but I always tell people if they reach out and ask, like check back in a couple months because
Mhm.
we may have a clinician who changes their mind or wants to open their own practice or things like that. And so there's a kind of a constant potential for availability.
Cool. And what about in your case? Do you see like there's room to expand? Like, would it be worth it to get a bigger place so you can attract more clinicians?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's definitely something that's in the back of my mind. I really struggle sometimes with like, okay, how how much bigger do I want to go, right? Because
Hmm.
there is a side of entrepreneurship that is a continuous putting out little fires, right? Like, oh, there was a little hole in the flooring that we had to repair, and then the air conditioner wasn't working the way that I wanted it to, and then the property management didn't like the color of our blinds. So it's like there's just little stuff that, when you look at it as a whole, you think that's not a big deal, but the more you expand, the more you open, those little fires become more and more of your full-time job. And so I do think, we currently have a couple-year lease and at that point, if we feel like we need more room, then I think there's definitely potential to expand or partner with others and try to kind of build this idea because I do think it's the way that we should be practicing in physical therapy. So potentially expanding, but there's obviously still risk involved with that, right? Like if you can't find providers who see the benefit and see the value, then you run the risk of having a space that's too big for you and you've got rent by yourself. So
Yeah. Yep.
there's
Yep.
there's still that risk involved, but we've been really lucky so far that that's never been an issue. We had providers immediately from the day we opened who were on board and
Nice.
ready to go. And I think again, with the way that our profession is moving, more and more people will be looking for that type of setup. And so there is definitely, I think, room to expand in the future.
Cool. Thank you, Rachel. So I want to also ask you about the app that you created, Stirrups to Situps.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about that, how that came into fruition, the idea, and how does it connect to your practice?
Totally. So Stirrups to Sit-Ups was an app that we created. I say we because it was a friend and I that kind of worked on it together. And we basically started that because I had done a research study on a rehab protocol for postnatal athletes. So when, athletes have a baby and they wanting to come back to sport, kind of what's the timeline for that? And when people come in, post rotator cuff repair, ACL repair, we have these protocols and these timelines of these are the things we should be doing by this certain amount of time. Childbirth, labor, delivery is a little bit different because it's a little bit unpredictable, but there still are general timelines that a clinician can look at and adjust based on the client in front of them. So I had created this rehab protocol that was a 12-week protocol of, assuming everything's going perfectly and this mom wants to get back to playing, potentially contact sports, this is a good timeline that we could kind of follow from day one to, return to sport. So I had put that into a rehab protocol, but with most peer-reviewed research, it's really nitty-gritty. There's a lot of medical jargon. There's a lot of like room for interpretation. And so it was something that was really great for providers, but not as great for, the athletes if they were trying to directly interpret the information themselves. So Stirrups to Sit-Ups came from that in terms of trying to say, hey, take this table and make it something that's digestible for the general athlete, make it something that they can follow along with, make it something that they can open it and say, "What should I do today? I'm 2 weeks postpartum. What are some good, safe things that I could be doing to help me heal and move in the right direction?" So we had that for a while, and then it was me and 2 others kind of partnered all in on it, and we were all in just totally different cities and just got super busy. So I ended up taking that kind of protocol into Synthesis, where we're at now. And so the Synthesis app, we now have the postpartum protocol actually will be uploaded next week. So we're filming it Thursday. So it's still relatively new in transfer, but same idea in that you open the app and it has like a guide of, hey, week to week, here's what you can be working on. If any of this doesn't feel good, I'm always very clear, like, it's not physical therapy. Like, I'm a physical therapist, but this is not physical therapy. This is just a guide. Not everyone has access to pelvic floor PT. Not everyone has that, availability around them. And so if it's something that helps you feel like at home, you're moving in the right direction, it gives you safe options, then that's the goal. And so that's kind of what we have or we'll have in the app next week. So the app is already out there. Synthesis is already out there. So that you can download that app. But then there's programs and courses within the app. So if you want to purchase a course once you're in the app, then you can do that. The app itself has 8 workouts per month. So for my clients who are maybe done, but they still want to continue the workouts that I've been providing, then I'll upload those into the app. So for monthly subscription, you get the access to all of those workouts. And then there's the option to buy courses kind of depending on what season of life you're in. So like right now, there's an 8-week run course where you can hop on and say, hey, I want to try to start running. What should I do? How should I do this? And it walks you through week to week with demonstrations. There's a labor delivery prep course. So if you're like about to have a baby and you want to understand like birthing positions and breath techniques and what happens to the muscles and things like that, then that's in there. So it's basically just taking stirrups to sit-ups and condensing it more into like one umbrella, as opposed to it having to be its complete own separate thing where we're all trying to coordinate from really different cities and states.
Cool. No, very nice. Cool. It's not easy doing, what you're doing plus an app development and all of that. All of this stuff takes upkeep and time. So all the best on that. I mean, but it's cool. It's a great idea and everything connects together, right? So, it's not like it's a different industry. You're connecting it back to wellness, right? To recovery. So awesome. So last question, any advice you recommend to others like therapists that are willing or they want to, let's say not willing yet, but they want to be kind of their own boss, be in charge of their own protocols and not having to be bound by productivity or minutes and units, things like that. What would you recommend to those therapists to finally break free and be on their own?
I think finding a mentor is really important. I don't feel like I had as much of a mentor, but I think that with, again, the direction that our field is moving, there's more and more people who have started to take different approaches to this. So again, like my facility functions different than a cash facility down the road where they like pay salary, right? Like those are just different opportunities. So trying to kind of decide what you want, but then finding a mentor that aligns with that. And it doesn't even have to be like a formal mentorship. It could just be like, hey, reach out to Instagram and just kind of say like, how did you get started? Like, I don't know how to like begin this process. I will also say that I was, I think, pleasantly surprised when I sat down and finally said, I'm going to do this. Like, let me figure out how. It wasn't as much as I thought it was. It really wasn't. Like trying to figure out, okay, I just need an LLC. I have my license in this state, and then I just need a place to practice and function. And I think when you're on the other side of making that jump, it feels so daunting. And it's one of those things that when you actually get into it, it's not as extensive as you think that it is. And it's one of those things that you can learn as you go. So again, having Synthesis for 3 years now, like there's still stuff, again, marketing wise, like Google ads, things like that, that I'm still learning. And that's okay. I think at the end of the day, I try to go back to thinking, am I taking good care of people? Am I taking good care of myself? Am I taking good care of my family? And if I'm doing those things, the rest will eventually fall into place. It's work and it's trust, but it will happen. And so understanding that the hardest part of this entire process for me was deciding to do it. And then once I decided to do it, I realized I should have done this a really long time ago.
Yep.
Uh, 'Cause there's a lot to it, but at the same time, there are people out there who have done it and are willing to help and walk you through the steps. And then again, the actual steps themselves are not as complex as you would think. Like opening an LLC takes 15 minutes, and you have your
Depending on the state, but yeah, yeah. Some states it's easy. In New York, it's not easy.
yeah.
Everybody.
But that's where, again, like a mentor in New York and saying like, "Hey, what was this process for you?" and understanding what your timeline looks like. In North Carolina, opening an LLC was really not a big deal at all.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things where, well, you can open an LLC and in 2 weeks you can, be ready to rock and roll if that's really what you wanna do. So finding a mentor and then understanding again that the hardest decision you will make is the decision to actually just start pursuing it. Once you start pursuing it, the wheels start turning, you get some
Yep.
momentum, and then it kinda just rolls from there. I mean, it's crazy to me that it's been 3 years, but it rolls and it keeps moving, and as long as you're, again, genuine and vulnerable and transparent about what you do and why you do it, I think that that will come back in dividends long term.
Great advice, Rachel. I definitely agree with that. I think overall, it seems scary because you might have never done it before. But I think once you do it, I think it's kind of like a breath of fresh air. Like I should have done it before, And again, there's things that you're going to learn as you go. There's going to be people you meet. There's going to be things that you encounter. But at the end of the day, at least you tried. And if it works out, you would never look back, and you don't want to have that regret of not trying, right? So excellent. Thank you very much, Rachel. Very cool. Pleasure to learn about you and your business and your product with the app. And great model overall. I mean, I really love that model that you can. It's kind of like giving back to the community as well, right?
Yeah,
So and it's
it's
inviting.
been fun. I've enjoyed it, and it's kind of renewed that passion for what we do, which I feel like had started to fizzle, when you're seeing so many clients per week. So it's been fun not to just do it myself, but also to provide an opportunity for other people to do it as well.
Yeah, awesome, awesome, Rachel. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and hopefully we can catch up soon. Otherwise, I wish you the best in your journey. Thank you very
Take
much.
care. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye bye.